The sun dipped low over the canals of Venice, painting the water in hues of amber and rose. The Piazza San Marco buzzed with merchants hawking silks, spices, and glassware in a symphony of accents. Into this vibrant scene trudged four weary travelers. Willem, a burly Dutch merchant with a furrowed brow. Claude, a French winemaker with a sun-weathered face. Hans, a meticulous German clockmaker. And Luca, a boisterous Italian sailor. Their boots were worn, their faces flushed with exhaustion. A Venetian woman in a lace shawl noticed their plight.
"The saints bless wanderers,"
she said, pressing a silver florin into Willem's palm. The men bowed in thanks, but as she vanished into the crowd, their camaraderie dissolved. Willem thumped the coin onto a stone ledge.
"We buy drivin'. Plump Dutch drivin' will revive us."
Claude scoffed.
Raisin is what we need. Ripe, noble raisin.
Hans adjusted his spectacles.
Nein, Trauben. Sweet Rhineland Trauben.
Luca threw up his hands.
Only uva! Juicy Sicilian uva!
Their voices crescendoed, fists waved, and curses flew in four tongues. A crowd of gondoliers and fishmongers jeered at the chaos. Just as Willem lunged at Luca, a serene voice interrupted.
Basta, let reason prevail.
The speaker was Matteo, a silver-bearded scholar in a velvet doublet. He'd studied philosophy in Padua and spoke the languages of Europe as fluently as Latin. After listening to each man's tirade, Matteo chuckled.
Madmen, you argue over the same fruit.
He gestured to a vendor's cart, overflowing with glistening purple grapes. The travelers froze, their anger melting into baffled silence. Matteo bought 4 clusters with the florin and passed them around. As the men bit into the sweet fruit, Luca grinned.
We fought like roosters over a word.
Claude sighed.
Words are vines. They tangle us.
That evening, the 4 gathered around a hearty meal at a trattoria, sharing stories and laughter with Matteo. By dawn, they'd pledged to sail together, their rivalry drowned in the Adriatic breeze. You know, at the heart of this story, there's something really powerful. It's inspired by Rumi, and it teaches us how sometimes pride in things like language and culture can make us lose sight of what's truly important. Think about those 4 travelers. They all wanted the same thing, grapes, but they ended up fighting just because they called them by different names. And then Matteo, the scholar, steps in and shows us how a bit of wisdom and patience can help people come together. Instead of focusing on their differences, he gets them to focus on what they share. That's the kind of mindset we all need. This theme of tribalism versus unity really hits home, doesn't it? The traveler's argument feels like a reflection of the kinds of clashes we see today, whether it's about politics, religion, or nationality. Most of the time, if you look deeper, you'll see we're actually arguing over the same thing, just using different words. Matteo, in this story, reminds me of the kind of people who act as mediators in real life. You know, the teachers, diplomats, or even just friends who help us move past our biases and see the bigger picture. And then there's humility. It's so hard to admit we're wrong sometimes, right? But it's such an important step toward growth, understanding, and building connections with others. It's like the key that unlocks the door to real progress. What's cool about this story is how relevant it feels to the world we live in today. Think about all the arguments you see on social media, or even in real life. People going back and forth without really listening to each other. This tale reminds us to take a step back, to listen first and argue later. Because honestly, how often are we really disagreeing? Sometimes it's just that we're expressing the same ideas differently. And here's the big takeaway. Europe's rivers all flow into the same sea. A grape, whether you call it druven, raisin, trauben, raisin, is still sweet. So let's focus on enjoying the fruit instead of fighting over its name. And before you go, don't forget to check out my other videos. I've got plenty more tales to spark your imagination and curiosity. If you enjoyed this one, give it a thumbs up and make sure to hit that subscribe button to stay updated. I'd also love to hear your thoughts about this story. What did it make you think about? Was there a part that stood out to you? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. Thanks for watching, and I can't wait to hear what you have to say. Nestled deep in the Appalachian Mountains, the village thrived in simplicity. Thomas and Eliza had long prayed for a child, their home filled with quiet longing. To ease the emptiness, Thomas one day brought home a stray, Scout, a lean, sharp-eyed mutt with an instinct for protection. Though Scout soon became Thomas's most trusted companion, Eliza kept her distance, uneasy about the dog's unpredictable nature. Years later, their prayers were answered. Samuel was born, a soft-cheeked, delicate child. As the years passed, Scout grew fiercely attached to him, often curling up beside his crib. But Eliza never let her guard down.
Never leave Samuel alone with Scout.
She warned Thomas. One autumn afternoon, Eliza baked fresh bread for an elderly neighbor.
Watch over both of them.
She reminded Thomas before heading out. Thomas nodded, but as hours passed, restlessness crept in. He had spent years with Scout. He trusted the old dog. Stepping outside, he let the crisp mountain air wash over him, losing track of time as he chatted with a neighbor. A blood-curdling cry shattered the peace. Thomas sprinted back toward the house, his heart pounding. The front door stood ajar, and inside, Scout was crouched low, panting heavily, his fur streaked with blood. Eliza arrived moments later, breathless. She followed Thomas's wide-eyed stare to the blood-soaked dog. The sight confirmed her worst fears.
No!
She screamed. Without hesitation, she grabbed the firewood poker and swung, striking Scout hard across his flank. The dog let out a whimper, but he did not run. He stood his ground. Eliza pushed past the dog and rushed to Samuel's crib. But instead of tragedy, she found the child unharmed, wrapped in a blanket, blinking up at her. Then, her gaze fell downward. Beneath the crib lay a rattlesnake, its body twisted unnaturally, puncture wounds fresh along its length. The blood-staining Scout's fur was not Samuel's. It was the serpent's. Eliza staggered back, dropping the poker. Horror and guilt clenched her throat. Scout had fought to protect the baby, not harm him. She collapsed beside the dog, her hands trembling as she tried to comfort him.
What have I done?
She whispered, stroking his head. Scout's breathing was shallow, his eyes dimming. Thomas knelt beside him, grief thick in his voice.
You saved our son.
He murmured, but it was too late. The faithful guardian had given his final act of loyalty. Scout was buried under the old oak tree behind their home. Years passed, and Samuel grew strong, though he would never know the hero that had watched over him. One evening, as the boy played outside, he noticed the small gravestone beneath the tree.
Who's buried there, Mama?
He asked. Eliza stared at the stone for a long time before answering, her voice soft with sorrow.
A friend. The bravest we ever had.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Let's take a moment to break down the layered emotions and themes behind the Hasty Judgment. As you just heard, this story isn't just about a fleeting mistake. It's about the heavy cost of quick decisions and the unexpected depths of loyalty. Right from the beginning, we see the longing of Thomas and Eliza, a desperate hope for family that sets the stage for every decision that follows. The introduction of Scout, the stray dog with an innate protective nature, is early foreshadowing. His presence hints that sometimes the ones we overlook can become our greatest guardians. It's interesting how the narrative uses Scout not only as a mere pet, but as a symbol of unconditional loyalty, a silent guardian who doesn't seek our praise, only our trust. Notice the delicate tension that builds when Eliza warns, "Never leave Samuel alone with Scout." This line captures her deep-seated anxiety, even as her husband finds comfort in the dog's presence. It makes you wonder, how often do our fears cloud our ability to see genuine intent for what it truly is? In the calm before the storm, that lingering doubt sets the scene for what comes next. The turning point arrives in that heart-pounding moment when a blood-curdling cry shatters the quiet afternoon. It's a moment of pure chaos, one that confronts us with the consequences of haste. And when Eliza, overwhelmed by panic and doubt, acts without understanding the full picture, it becomes clear that quick judgments do more than harm others. They can tear apart something precious. Look at the powerful contrast in that moment. The innocence of a baby, the loyalty of a dying guardian, and the irreversible act of a mother gripped by fear. Then comes the heartbreaking reveal. The true reason behind the bloody scene, a silent sacrifice from Scout trying to protect Samuel. It's a twist that forces us to question our own assumptions. Was it really a mistake or a tragic misinterpretation born out of fear? The narrative isn't content with a simple answer. It challenges us to look beneath the surface and reflect on the harsh realities of making snap decisions. As we wrap up this analysis, think about the choices we make in our own lives. How often do we let our emotions cloud our judgment? And isn't it a reminder that sometimes the true heroes in our story are the ones who work silently in the background, expecting nothing in return? If this story struck a chord with you, dive into my other story videos to keep exploring these powerful themes. And hey, if you enjoyed this deep dive, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment below sharing your thoughts. What do you think about the cost of hasty judgments? I'd love to hear your perspectives. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and thank you so much for watching. Robert, a prosperous merchant, employed many servants in his large household. Among them was Henry, a man known for his quiet wisdom and practical insight. Henry's thoughtful nature earned him Robert's particular favor, which sparked bitter jealousy among the other servants. They constantly schemed to undermine Henry in their master's eyes. One morning, Robert summoned Henry and several other servants.
Go to the orchard.
He instructed them firmly.
Pick the finest fruit. We have important guests dining with us tonight.
The group set off. They worked diligently, filling their baskets with ripe apples, pears, and plums. On the journey back, however, the jealous servants hatched their plan. While Henry walked ahead, focused on the path, the others quickly devoured every piece of fruit in their baskets. By the time they reached the manor gates, only Henry's basket held any fruit at all. Robert awaited their return. Seeing mostly empty baskets, his face clouded with confusion and then anger.
Where is the fruit for tonight's feast?
He demanded, his voice tight. The servants, seizing their chance, pointed at Henry.
Henry ate it all, sir.
One declared boldly.
Yes,
Chimed another.
He couldn't stop himself. He ate everything.
Robert turned on Henry, his disappointment sharp.
Henry, how could you? You knew the guests were coming. How could you possibly eat so much fruit alone?
Henry met his master's gaze calmly.
I ate nothing, sir. To do so would be a betrayal of your trust.
Betrayal?
Robert scoffed.
How can you prove you didn't eat it? Every other man here says you did.
Put us to a test, sir.
Henry suggested steadily.
Then you will see who tells the truth.
Robert threw his hands up, exasperated.
A test? How? The fruit is gone. The only way to know whose belly holds it is to cut you all open. Is that your test?
A faint, knowing smile touched Henry's lips.
You are right, sir. The fruit is inside those who ate it. But we need not resort to such violence. Command that we all drink warm water. Then, mount your horse and ride out across the fields. We will follow you on foot.
Robert frowned, perplexed.
Warm water? Running? What possible purpose does this serve?
The outcome will reveal itself plainly, sir.
Henry assured him. Intrigued despite his frustration, Robert ordered a large pot of warm water brought out. Each servant drank a full cup. Robert then mounted his swiftest horse and rode out towards the open fields at a brisk trot. The servants, including Henry, ran after him on foot. After running for nearly an hour under the sun, the effects of the warm water and the exertion took hold. One by one, the servants who had eaten the fruit began to feel violently ill. They stumbled, retched, and soon their stomachs emptied onto the grass. Undigested pieces of apple, pear, and plum lay clear upon the ground before them. Only Henry, who ran steadily without distress, had nothing to show but sweat. Robert reined in his horse and surveyed the scene. The truth was undeniable. He looked at the guilty servants, his expression a mixture of fury and disgust.
You gluttons! You stole the fruit meant for my guests, disgraced yourselves, and then tried to blame an innocent man.
He turned to Henry, his anger softening into profound respect.
Henry, your wisdom and integrity shine brighter than ever. Forgive my doubt. You have proven yourself beyond measure.
Robert knew then that true worth couldn't be hidden by the lies of the envious. Okay, folks, let's unpack the orchard test. What's really going on in this merchant's household, and why does this simple story stick with us? First off, we see that ugly green monster rear its head. Jealousy. Those other servants? They couldn't stand seeing Henry get respect from Robert. That jealousy wasn't just a feeling. It turned into action, stealing the fruit and then telling a deliberate, damaging lie. It's a classic move, right? Trying to pull someone down because you feel they're above you. The story shows us how poisonous that can be, almost tearing the household apart. But then we have Henry. He's the calm center of the storm. Faced with a really serious accusation, theft and betrayal, he doesn't panic. He doesn't shout back. He stays steady. His wisdom isn't just about being smart, it's about patience and strategy. He knows the truth will out, but he also knows how to make it happen. He offers a solution that's clever and, importantly, non-violent. Remember Robert's first horrifying idea? Cutting them open? Henry's test avoids that brutality completely. It's a test of nature, the warm water and the run, that forces the truth to surface literally. It highlights that wisdom often finds a better way than force. And that leads us to the consequences of deceit. The guilty servants thought their lie was foolproof. Everyone's saying it, so it must be believed. But lies have a way of unraveling, especially when confronted with a clever test. They weren't just caught, they were humiliated by their own actions. The story drives home that dishonesty might seem like a quick win, but it usually leads to a much harder fall. Robert's anger at the end isn't just about the stolen fruit, it's about the broken trust and the malicious intent. The resolution also underscores the value of true character. Robert initially doubted Henry because of the overwhelming, false testimony. But Henry's integrity and his clever proof completely restored his master's faith, even deepening it. It shows that genuine worth, even when attacked, can ultimately prevail and be recognized. So, what's the purpose here on DecodeTales? Why share this? It's more than just an old story. It's a timeless lesson about human nature. It reminds us how destructive jealousy can be. The power of keeping a clear head and using wisdom under pressure. That lies, even widespread ones, can be exposed. The importance of seeking truth cleverly and justly. That integrity, in the end, wins respect. It's a blueprint for dealing with false accusations and navigating tricky social situations, using wit instead of wrath. Pretty powerful stuff packed into a simple orchard trip, wouldn't you say? What about you? Have you ever faced a situation where jealousy caused problems? Or maybe you saw someone cleverly prove their innocence? Let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the story or experiences it reminds you of. If you enjoyed unpacking the orchard test and want more insights into classic tales and their hidden meanings, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to DecodeTales, and ring the notification bell. We've got plenty more stories waiting to be decoded. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next tale. In a quiet suburban neighborhood in Middle America, where maple trees line the streets and front porches host lemonade stands in summer, Thomas Carter, a retired librarian with a hearing impairment, prided himself on being a good neighbor. Though his world had grown quieter with age, he compensated with meticulous routines. When he learned his elderly neighbor Mr. Jenkins had fallen ill, Thomas resolved to pay a visit. "I must be careful," he thought. "If I mishear him, he might suspect my deafness. Best to plan ahead." Settling into his armchair, Thomas scripted the conversation in his mind. I'll ask, "How are you feeling?" He'll say, "On the mend, thanks." I'll reply, "Thank goodness." What's helped? He'll mention chicken soup or Tylenol. I'll say, "Smart choice." Then ask, "Who's your doctor?" He'll name Dr. Miller from the clinic. I'll say, "Bless his heart, he's the best." Satisfied, Thomas grabbed a casserole, his signature tuna bake, and headed next door. Mr. Jenkins, gaunt and pale, answered the door clutching a heating pad. Thomas said cheerily,
How are you feeling, neighbor?
Mr. Jenkins groaned.
Like I've been hit by a truck.
Of course, Thomas thought he was being modest, misreading the pained expression. He replied,
Thank goodness. What's helped you recover?
Rat poison. Accidentally drank it. Still queasy.
Thomas nodded.
Smart choice. Nothing like home remedies. And your doctor? Who's treating you?
Dr. Reaper at Death's Door Clinic.
Ah, bless his heart. I've heard he's excellent.
He set down the casserole.
This'll build your strength. Let's catch up soon.
As Thomas left, Mr. Jenkins rasped.
Are you trying to kill me?
But Thomas, already halfway down the path, waved cheerfully, replaying the perfect visit in his mind. That evening, Thomas recounted the interaction to his book club.
Mr. Jenkins is so resilient. We had a lovely chat about his recovery.
The group praised his kindness, unaware of the comedy of errors. Mr. Jenkins, meanwhile, called his niece.
That lunatic brought poison casserole. Next time, let's just text.
At its core, this story is a mirror held up to one of humanity's most persistent frailties: our tendency to substitute assumptions for understanding. Thomas, with his rehearsed script and earnest intentions, embodies a paradox we all face: the desire to connect clashing with the fear of vulnerability. His hearing impairment is not merely a physical condition, but a metaphor for the emotional and psychological static that distorts our interactions. Pride, prejudice, and the stories we cling to about how life should unfold. Rumi's ancient wisdom, reframed here in a modern Western context, asks us to confront an uncomfortable truth. We often love the idea of kindness more than the messy work of practicing it. Thomas's meticulously planned dialogue, a performative checklist of proper questions and blessings, reveals how easily compassion becomes transactional. He seeks validation as a good neighbor more than he seeks to know his neighbor. In doing so, he mirrors our own rituals. The hollow, "How are you?" tossed like a coin into a wishing well, the reflexive thoughts and prayers offered more to soothe our guilt than to heal another's pain. But the story's deeper lesson lies in its irony. The louder our certainty, the less we hear. Thomas's rehearsed lines, "Smart choice," "Bless his heart," are not malicious. They are, in fact, tributes to societal norms, the scripts we inherit about decency and duty. Yet these very scripts become cages. When Mr. Jenkins rasps rat poison, Thomas's inability to pivot, to let shock shatter his prepared narrative, exposes the fragility of connection built on autopilot. We see here the chasm between intent and impact. A casserole meant to nourish becomes a symbol of carelessness. A compliment about a doctor twists into a cruel joke. This dissonance echoes beyond individual missteps. It critiques a culture obsessed with solutions over solidarity, answers over awe. In an age of instant messaging and AI chatbots, we've grown adept at efficiency in communication but often forfeit empathy. We solve grief with platitudes, fix loneliness with small talk, and mistake silence for resolution. Thomas's blunder with Mr. Jenkins is a microcosm of this collective failing. We prioritize the optics of compassion over the uncomfortable sacred act of sitting with another's pain. Yet the tale is not without hope. Its sharp humor, a man praising Dr. Reaper, invites us to laugh at our own folly, to recognize the universality of these missteps. The true moral lies not in condemning Thomas, but in asking, how might we rewrite the script? The answer begins with unlearning the arrogance of assumption. To listen is to surrender the need to control the narrative, to release our grip on right answers and instead ask, tell me more. It demands the courage to say, I don't understand, but I'm here. This is where Rumi's spiritual thread weaves through the story. Presence is prayer. Just as a clenched fist cannot receive water, a mind clenched around preconceptions cannot receive truth. Ultimately, the story invites us to replace performance with patience. Imagine if Thomas had paused when Mr. Jenkins mentioned poison, had leaned in, eyes wide, and whispered, "That sounds terrifying. How can I help?" Such moments of raw presence are where healing begins. They require no scripts, only the humility to admit we don't know, and the faith that true connection blooms not in the certainty of answers, but in the fertile soil of shared silence. Let go of the need to be the hero with all the lines. Sometimes the greatest gift is not a casserole, but a question, and the courage to hear the answer. In a bustling coastal town named Mariner's Reach, there lived a merchant named Edward Carter. Though kind-hearted, Edward was not wealthy. His greatest asset was 500 pounds of iron stored in his workshop. One day, Edward decided to embark on a trading voyage to distant lands. Before leaving, he entrusted his iron to his childhood friend, Harold Briggs, a man known for his silver tongue but questionable integrity.
Keep this safe, Harold. When I return, I'll use it to build ships for the harbor.
On my honor, not a speck of rust shall touch it.
But greed soon consumed Harold. He sold the iron to a blacksmith, squandering the money on lavish feasts and fine clothes. 2 years later, Edward returned. Harold, panic-stricken, invented a tale.
Edward, a tragedy! A mouse infested the storage shed. By the time I discovered it, the creature had eaten all the iron.
Edward paused, then replied calmly.
How remarkable. I've heard of such mice in far-off lands. Their teeth must be stronger than steel.
Harold, mistaking Edward's sarcasm for gullibility, grinned.
Stay for supper! Let's celebrate your return!
Another time. I've business to attend to first.
As Edward left, he spotted Harold's 10-year-old son, Charlie, playing by the docks.
Come, Charlie. Your father asked me to take you fishing.
The boy eagerly joined him. Edward took Charlie to a trusted innkeeper's home, asking her to care for him briefly. When Harold realized Charlie was missing, the town erupted into chaos. Search parties scoured the streets until Edward addressed the crowd.
I saw a giant eagle swoop down and carry Charlie off.
Harold exploded.
Ridiculous! An eagle can't lift a child!
Edward smirked.
In a town where a mouse devours 500 pounds of iron, why wouldn't an eagle snatch a boy?
The crowd burst into laughter. Harold, red-faced, confessed,
The iron's gone, but I'll repay every penny.
Edward returned Charlie unharmed, and Harold sold his estate to settle the debt. All right, friends, let's take a moment to chat about what we just heard. This story isn't just an entertaining tale. It's loaded with lessons that speak to some very real aspects of human nature. First off, consider the consequences of greed. Harold's unchecked desire for more led him down a path where his dishonest actions not only ruined his reputation, but also cost him dearly. He squandered what Edward entrusted to him on lavish feasts and fine clothes, completely losing sight of the true purpose behind the trust placed in him. In contrast, Edward's humble goal of using that iron to build ships reminds us that integrity and a clear purpose matter far more than fleeting indulgences. Now, let's talk about the cleverness at work here. Instead of resorting to confrontation, Edward uses his wit, delivering a sharp, tongue-in-cheek remark with his eagle metaphor, to expose Harold's lie. It's a perfect example of how intelligent, calm reasoning can cut through deception much more effectively than anger or violence ever could. And then there's the irony of hypocrisy versus true integrity. Harold's declaration, "On my honor," rings so hollow when measured against his actual deeds. Edward's measured, strategic response, however, highlights that true strength doesn't need to shout or show off. It quietly stands firm in the truth. When we step back, we see that the story reflects universal truths. Unchecked greed corrupts, cleverness triumphs over brute force, and hypocrisy crumbles in the face of genuine integrity. It's a humorous yet poignant reminder that, in life, substance always wins over empty words. So, what did you think of all this? Have you ever experienced a situation where a clever twist of fate or a moment of integrity made all the difference? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop them in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story and analysis, do check out my other narrative videos. Remember to like the video, subscribe for more engaging content, and share this tale with friends who appreciate a good mix of wit and wisdom. And as we wrap up, remember, lies may glitter like gold, but truth is the only currency that never rusts. Let Edward's wit and Harold's downfall serve as guideposts on your own journey. In the heart of the English countryside, where mist clung to rolling hills and ancient oaks stood sentinel over sprawling estates, there lived a man of great wealth and influence. Lord Harold Whitcomb was known far and wide for his vast lands, shrewd business acumen, and a fortune built over generations. Yet beneath his stern exterior lay a restless heart, one that yearned for wisdom as much as wealth. His household buzzed with servants, stewards, and advisors, but none commanded his respect like Lawrence, a man whose quiet dignity and unshakable integrity set him apart. Lawrence had entered Lord Whitcomb's service as a young man, orphaned and penniless, but with a sharp mind that caught the Lord's attention. Over the years, he rose from stable hand to steward, not through flattery or ambition, but through an almost uncanny ability to see through pretense. While others schemed for favor, Lawrence spoke plainly. While others indulged in gossip, he listened. And while the Lord's own sons squabbled over inheritance, Lawrence managed the estate with such care that the harvest grew richer, the tenants happier, and the Whitcomb name more respected than ever. The bond between the two men puzzled the household. Lord Whitcomb, a man of exacting standards, deferred to Lawrence's judgment in all matters. At council meetings, he would silence quarreling advisors with a raised hand and turn to Lawrence.
"What say you?"
he'd ask, and the room would still. When a blight threatened the wheat fields, it was Lawrence who suggested rotating crops with clover to nourish the soil. When a fire ravaged the tenant cottages, it was Lawrence who organized the rebuilding without a single family left homeless. But it was at the dining table where their relationship truly confounded observers. Every evening, Lord Whitcomb insisted Lawrence join him for supper, a privilege never extended to other servants. The ritual was unvarying. A servant would bring the first dish, and the Lord would gesture for Lawrence to taste it.
"Your approval blesses the meal,"
he'd say. Only then would the Lord eat, savoring each bite as if it were seasoned by Lawrence's judgment. One crisp autumn day, a farmer from the northern hills arrived with a gift. A melon of unusual size, its golden rind streaked with emerald, a fruit said to grow only in distant, sun-drenched lands. The farmer claimed it was the sweetest in the world, a treasure for the Lord's table. Lord Whitcomb, intrigued, ordered it brought to the study.
"Send for Lawrence,"
he told a footman.
"We shall share this rarity together."
When Lawrence entered, the Lord was already slicing the melon with a silver knife. The fruit's flesh glistened, pale as moonlight.
"Sit,"
said Lord Whitcomb, handing him the first slice.
"Tell me if its sweetness matches its beauty."
Lawrence hesitated.
"My lord, surely your sons."
"My sons,"
the Lord interrupted,
"would swallow it whole and ask for wine. You taste, now eat."
And so Lawrence did. He took a small bite, then another, his face softening with pleasure.
"Like honeyed dew,"
he murmured. The Lord, delighted, cut another slice. And another. Each time Lawrence ate with relish, praising the melon's flavor until 17 slices lay consumed, and only one remained.
Now,
Said Lord Whitcomb, seizing the final piece. A faint, knowing smile touched Henry's lips. He bit deeply and froze. A violent grimace twisted his face. The melon was not sweet. It was bitter, unbearably so, its acrid juice searing his tongue like vinegar laced with ash. He spat into a handkerchief, gasping.
how?
He choked out, staring at Lawrence.
You ate 17 slices. Was this a jest? A test?
Lawrence met his gaze, calm as ever.
My lord, when I first came to your house, I was a boy with nothing. You gave me bread when I was hungry, medicine when I was ill, trust when I was nameless. For 20 years, your kindness has been sweeter than any fruit. Should I grimace at one bitter gift?
The room fell silent. Lord Whitcomb's anger dissolved into something far heavier, shame. He had prided himself on his discernment, yet he'd failed to see the truth. Loyalty forged not by obligation, but by gratitude, could endure even poison. Let's peel back the layers of this tale. On one level, it's a story about loyalty, but not the kind bought with gold or fear. Lawrence's loyalty is earned, a slow-growing vine nurtured by years of mutual respect. Notice how the story flips traditional power dynamics. Lord Whitcomb, a man of immense privilege, finds himself humbled by his own servant. Why? Because Lawrence embodies a virtue the Lord lacks: mastery over self. While the Lord's son's chase status, Lawrence finds contentment in service. While the Lord seeks external validation, Lawrence's worth is internal, unshaken by bitterness, literally and metaphorically. This isn't just a historical vignette. Think about modern workplaces. How often do we dismiss the Lawrences around us, the quiet colleagues, the unsung caregivers, because they lack titles? Yet these are often the people who hold communities, families, and businesses together through simple, steadfast decency. And let's talk about that melon. 17 bitter slices. At first glance, Lawrence's act seems almost absurd, but dig deeper. It's a metaphor for how gratitude reframes hardship. When we focus on life's sweetness, the people who've supported us, the small joys we've been given, the occasional bitterness feels smaller. Not gone, but manageable. If this resonates, you'll love DecodeTales. We're all about stories that challenge how we see the world. Smash that subscribe button and let me know in the comments. Could you stomach 17 bitter slices for someone you respect? Deep in the mossy heart of Greenwood Forest, a mother frog lived in a cozy pond fringed with cattails and lilies. Her tadpoles, 6 shimmering specks of life, darted playfully in the shallows. But the frog's joy was shadowed by fear. Just beyond the pond, in the hollow of an ancient oak, lurked a serpentine snake with scales like polished obsidian. Every rustle of leaves made her tremble, for she knew the snake hungered for her young. One evening, the frog paddled to the burrow of her clever friend, a raccoon.
My friend, the snake, grows bolder each day. I cannot fight him, nor can I abandon this pond. It's our home. What can I do?
The raccoon, washing a berry in the stream, paused. His eyes gleamed with cunning.
Strength alone won't defeat a foe like him, but a trap might. Do you know the weasel who dwells near the blackberry thicket? He's always hunting. Leave a trail of fish from his den to the snake's oak. The weasel will follow and finish your problem.
The frog hesitated.
But what if the weasel becomes our problem?
Risk a new enemy or lose your tadpoles tomorrow. Your choice.
Desperate, the frog spent the night catching minnows. At dawn, she laid a glistening path of fish through the ferns, ending at the snake's oak. As predicted, the weasel, a wiry, red-eyed creature, sniffed the trail, devouring each fish until he reached the oak. A hiss, a scuffle, then silence. The snake was gone. For weeks, peace reigned. The frog's tadpoles sprouted legs, hopping freely under her watchful eye. But one moonless night, the weasel returned. No fish awaited him this time, only the plump frogs by the pond. With a predator's patience, he struck. By morning, the mother frog and her brood were gone. And so, the forest whispered a lesson. Deceit once unleashed seldom spares its master. The frog's fear of the snake is something we can all relate to, isn't it? Fear can make us act quickly, sometimes without thinking through the long-term consequences. The frog thought she was solving her problem by getting rid of the snake, but instead, she ended up with an even bigger threat: the weasel. It's a bit like when we try to fix one issue in our lives, only to accidentally create new problems. It's that classic out-of-the-frying-pan into the fire situation. I'm sure we've all had moments like that, right? Now let's talk about the raccoon. His advice, while clever, is so cold, don't you think? Take a risk or lose everything, he says. It's logical, sure, but there's no empathy in his words. The frog trusts this calculated approach, thinking she can outsmart the natural order. But here's the thing: nature doesn't play by our rules. The frog's clever plan backfires, reminding us that sometimes no amount of strategy or planning can tame the chaos of life. And what about the forest itself? Did you notice how alive it felt? The rustling leaves, the stillness of the moonless night. It's almost as if the forest is watching, but silently. It doesn't take sides. It's not good or bad. It just is. And when the frog disrupted the balance, the forest responded. It's fascinating, isn't it? Harsh, but fascinating. If we look deeper, this story is really about us, isn't it? Strip away the animals and it's easy to see how it reflects human choices. Think of pest control. Get rid of one problem and sometimes you create another. Or even in politics, replace one leader, and a worse one might take their place. It's a reminder that violence, or even deception, often comes back to bite us in unexpected ways. That's why this story sticks with us. We feel sorry for the frog, but at the same time, we see where she went wrong. The raccoon is clever, but his advice feels ruthless. And the weasel? It's just doing what weasels do, surviving. These characters are so real because they represent roles we've all encountered: the protector, the strategist, the opportunist. So let me leave you with this thought. What fears or threats in your life are like the snake in this story? And if you take action, what weasels might you accidentally invite in? If this story resonated with you, be sure to check out my other videos for more fascinating tales. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear what this story made you think about. In the dusty frontier town of Redemption Creek, there lived a man named Barnaby, a notorious glutton with a laugh as loud as his appetite. Though poor, Barnaby refused to work, preferring to scam meals from sympathetic townsfolk. When his schemes grew bolder, stealing pies from windows and devouring a whole ham meant for the church picnic, Sheriff Hawthorne threw him in the town jail. But Barnaby turned prison into his personal banquet. He swiped bread from other inmates' plates and slurped their bean stew, growling, "Ain't no law against eatin'." The prisoners revolted, storming the sheriff's office. "Save us," they pleaded. "That glutton's worse than a grizzly. We're starving while he's stuffing his gullet." Sheriff Hawthorne, a sharp-eyed man who valued hard work, soon realized Barnaby's game. Jail was his paradise: free food, no labor. The next morning, the sheriff dragged Barnaby out, ignoring his howls of,
"I'll behave, let me stay."
You'll learn the value of honest work,
the sheriff declared. To ensure Barnaby couldn't mooch off others, he ordered Jed, a wiry woodcutter, to parade him through town on a creaky wagon. Jed was to ring a bell and shout,
"Here ya, this here's Barnaby, a lazy glutton. He ain't got a penny to his name. Don't feed him, lend to him, or trust him. Let him earn his keep."
All day, Jed dutifully bellowed the warning, his voice hoarse by sundown. As stars appeared, he confronted Barnaby.
"Pay up. $1 for my labor, 2 for the wagon."
Barnaby smirked.
You've been telling folks I don't pay debts and ain't got a penny. Reckon they'll side with me now. Why'd they trust you to collect what I owe?
Jed's face fell. He'd been outwitted by his own words. The sheriff, watching from the shadows, shook his head.
A lesson for us all.
So, let's talk about what we can take away from Barnaby's antics. This isn't just a tale about a gluttonous man. There's some food for thought here, and no, I don't mean pie. First up, hypocrisy. Jed went around town shouting that Barnaby ain't got a penny, and yet, he turns around and asks Barnaby to pay him for his labor. See the irony? It's a good reminder that if we want people to take our words seriously, we need to make sure our actions back them up. Next, there's the illusion of control. The sheriff thought he could shame Barnaby into reforming, but Barnaby turned the whole thing to his advantage. It makes you wonder, does shaming really work? Or does it just make people dig their heels in? Then there's the issue of poverty. Barnaby's actions reflect both personal choices and larger societal issues. Sure, he didn't want to work, but think about how society treats people who are down on their luck. The story forces us to think about where the line is between personal responsibility and systemic challenges. Oh, and let's not forget the power of words. Jed's bell and warnings were supposed to isolate Barnaby, but they ended up giving him ammunition instead. Words can be tricky like that. They can take on a life of their own. And in our modern age of misinformation, that's a pretty relevant point, don't you think? Lastly, there's the irony of justice. The sheriff was supposed to uphold fairness, but in the end, he just stood back and watched as Jed got humiliated. Makes you question who really holds the power in situations like these, the law or the people interpreting it. So, there you have it. A story about pies, wagons, and gluttony that's really about the deeper questions in life. Who knew Redemption Creek had so much to teach us? Thanks for listening, my friends. If you enjoyed this tale, make sure to check out my other story videos for more lessons and laughter. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you'd like to keep the stories coming. And hey, what do you think about Barnaby's cunning or the sheriff's plan? Do you agree with how things played out? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. In the misty hills of 14th century England, there lived a pious monk named Brother Cedric. Known for his austere lifestyle and unwavering faith, Cedric dedicated his days to prayer, charity, and tending to the abbey's gardens. One autumn morning, the abbot tasked him with a sacred duty to purchase a pure white lamb for the village's harvest festival sacrifice, a ritual meant to bless the community with a bountiful year ahead. Cedric set off to the market, his heart light with purpose. After careful bargaining, he acquired a flawless lamb, its fleece as white as freshly fallen snow, and began his journey back to the abbey. Unbeknownst to him, 3 villagers, Thomas the blacksmith, Henry the tanner, and John the carpenter, had fallen on hard times. Desperate to feed their families, they spotted Cedric and conspired to steal the lamb. Thomas stepped forward first, blocking Cedric's path.
Brother Cedric, why do you lead a wolf by a rope? Have the woods not enough of such beasts?
Cedric frowned.
A wolf? This is a lamb, Thomas. A sacrifice for the festival.
Henry emerged next, clutching a wooden cross to his chest.
Forgive me, brother, but wolves are omens of greed. Surely a holy man would not keep company with one.
His voice dripped with false concern. Cedric hesitated, glancing at the lamb. Before he could reply, John approached, shaking his head gravely.
A monk who walks with a wolf risks his soul. The abbot would be grieved to see this.
Doubt crept into Cedric's mind. Had he been deceived? The villager's words echoed in his ears.
Wolf.
Omen.
Risk.
Was this truly a lamb, or had dark magic tricked his eyes? Torn between faith and fear, he dropped the rope and fled to the abbey, praying for forgiveness. The villagers seized the lamb, their laughter hidden behind masks of pity. When Cedric confessed to the abbot, the wise old man sighed.
My son, the wolf existed only in their words. You let fear cloud your duty.
So, what's going on here? This story offers some profound lessons, doesn't it? Let's break them down together. First off, we have the power of manipulation. The villagers weren't just clever. They weaponized Cedric's own virtues against him. By repeatedly calling the lamb a wolf, they planted doubt in his mind and exploited his fear of sin. This mirrors what we sometimes call gaslighting today. When lies are told so convincingly, they start to feel like truth. Cedric fell for it, and that speaks volumes about the power of repeated words. Now, what about Cedric himself? This leads us to the vulnerability of the devout. Cedric's tragedy lies in his selflessness. His commitment to being virtuous and righteous made him an easy target. The villagers knew that they could stir guilt in his heart, and they did so ruthlessly. It's a cautionary tale. Even the most principled among us must learn to protect themselves from those who might misuse our trust. Then there's critical thinking versus social pressure. Cedric never stopped to question the villagers' claims. He didn't pause and take a moment to inspect the lamb himself or challenge the idea that they were wrong. Instead, he gave in to their words. The abbot's final advice is key here. Truth isn't just about faith. It also requires courage. Courage to stand firm and question when others try to distort reality. And here's the takeaway. In a world where falsehoods often disguise themselves as truth, discernment is our greatest weapon. Trust, but verify. Doubt, but never despair. Cedric's story reminds us to think critically and stay true to our own judgment, even when others try to cloud it. And, dear listeners, one final thought. Not everyone who warns you of wolves is looking out for you. Sometimes they're just hungry for the lamb. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video and Cedric's story, check out my other storytelling videos. There's plenty more to explore. And hey, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. What did you think of Cedric's tale? Let me know. I love hearing your perspective. Centuries ago, in the lush countryside of rural England, there stood a quaint village named Willowbrook. Its cobblestone streets wound past cottages with smoke curling from chimneys, and at the edge of town lived a farmer named Arthur and his wife, Margaret. The couple was known for their diligence, Arthur with his sun-weathered hands tending the fields, and Margaret with her sharp wit managing their home. Their pride was their stone cellar, stocked with sacks of wheat and barley, a fortress against the harsh winters that gripped the land. One spring, relentless rains turned the soil to mud. The cellar, usually dry, began to seep water. Margaret, her apron stained with clay from patching cracks, turned to Arthur and said,
"This damp will ruin our stores. The walls are crumbling. We must rebuild the cellar before summer."
Arthur, wiping sweat from his brow after a day's labor, shook his head.
The rains will pass. Rebuilding now would take weeks, and the planting season waits for no one. We'll lose more grain to delay than to a little damp.
Margaret hesitated but relented. By midsummer, the cellar dried and the fields flourished. Their harvest was so abundant that the cellar overflowed.
We'll feast like kings this winter.
Arthur laughed, clasping Margaret's hand. But autumn brought storms. When the couple opened the cellar door, their joy turned to dismay. The grain sacks, once plump, lay shrunken and sparse. Arthur's face darkened.
You've been sneaking into the stores. While I toiled, you gorged like a thief.
Margaret's eyes widened.
I've not touched a grain. Could it not be rats? Or the dampness compressing the sacks? Think, Arthur, why would I betray our future?
But Arthur, pride sharp as a scythe, pointed to the door.
Go. I'll not share my roof with a liar.
You'll rue this haste,
she whispered, vanishing into the stormy night. Days later, sunlight returned. Arthur revisited the cellar and froze. The grain had swelled, filling every corner. The autumn rains had rehydrated the compacted kernels, restoring their bulk. Guilt clawed at him. He searched for Margaret, but she was gone. Lost to the wilds, villagers whispered, or worse, to bandits who prowled the forest roads. Arthur lived out his years alone, The seller's shadow a constant reminder. A moment's anger had cost him a lifetime of love. All right, let's dig into this. Why does this 17th century farmer's mistake matter to us? First, snap judgments. Arthur didn't just accuse Margaret, he convicted her. No questions, no proof. Sound familiar? Ever blamed a coworker for a missed deadline before checking their side? Or assumed a friend forgot your birthday out of spite? We're all guilty of filling gaps in knowledge with our worst fears. Second, pride versus humility. Arthur's downfall wasn't just anger, it was his refusal to doubt himself. Psychologists call this cognitive rigidity, the inability to adapt when facts change. Ever dug in your heels during an argument only to realize later you were wrong? That's Arthur's legacy. His pride cost him Margaret. Third, the science of perception. Grain does expand with moisture, a neat metaphor for how reality can deceive us. Arthur saw half empty and assumed theft, not nature. How often do we misread situations because we lack context? A partner working late isn't neglectful. They might be planning a surprise. A quiet friend isn't rude. They might be grieving. The kicker? Regret. Arthur's story isn't just about blame. It's about the irreversible consequences of haste. Unlike fairy tales, there's no magic fix here. Margaret doesn't return. The lesson? Pause, breathe, ask. A little curiosity could have saved their marriage. So next time you're ready to accuse, ask yourself, what don't I know? It might just save a relationship or your peace of mind. If you felt that twist in Arthur's tale, hit like and subscribe for more stories where history meets heartache. Let me know in the comments. What would you have done in Margaret's shoes? Forgiveness? A fiery comeback? I'm all ears. And remember, folks, life's too short for hasty judgments. Until next time, keep your mind open and your heart kinder.